We're right now. We're right to go.
Let's go, councillors. I declare the Edward River Council Ordinary Meeting of the 15th of March 2022 open at 9 AM. I extend a warm welcome to all councillors, staff, those viewing the council meeting online and members of the gallery. Last meeting statement. Edward River Council wishes to advise members of the public that council meetings will be recorded and will be available after each meeting on council website. All care will be taken to maintain the privacy of those in attendance. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the public gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event your image is broadcast. This includes any filming by television cameras if attendance is approved by the General Manager or Mayor. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge that we are here today on the land of the Wamba Wamba Perapa people. I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to past Aboriginal elders, the present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who reside within this area and their future generations. Statement of purpose. I have come here as a councillor freely and without bias to represent the views of the community in considering the matters before us today, to vote in a manner I consider to be in the best interest of the community, and to observe the code of conduct and respect the rule of the chair and views of my fellow councillors. Apologies. Applications for leave. All councillors present. A confirmation of minutes. Second out for the confirmation of the minutes. Fellows?
Yeah, Councillor Fellows, mate. Yeah, Councillor Pearson.
Do we have any disclosures of interest this morning, councillors? No?
Is there any disclosures with the forms and that? Just like to living.
Disclosures, awesome. We do have a mirror minute this morning. We would like to acknowledge and express support for our fellow 57 New South Wales councillors who have been impacted by the recent flood. 57 councillors. It is really hard to fathom that when you think of that, the size of Edward River Council alone. I'm proud that some of our own RFS team members from Edward River have headed north to help with the cleanup, and we express support for those and all emergency services personnel involved in the response. Those councils and staff would be under enormous pressure at the moment, and I would like it noted that our thoughts and best wishes go out to all of them. All our best wishes go out to the thousands of community members who have also been impacted. Our hearts also go out to the friends and families of those who have lost their lives in this tragic event. All right, item 10, reports of committees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in the business over there, councillors, the minutes from the Memorial Park Users Committee that was held on the 9th of March. So the information that's what has been provided to our councillors information. Any questions regarding it?
Questions?
Councillor Burge attended the meeting on behalf of council. There was good representation from the users. It was good discussion throughout the meeting, throughout the evening. It had been some time, so with the new council, and councils remember that we've gone through the committees with councillors on the different committees, so we are starting to get those meetings going again, and we're getting a fair amount of inquiries from other groups around getting a normal committee meeting structure going again, so councils the time getting into a more normal holding meetings and reporting of the minutes and actions from those committees coming back through into the council reports is the intent that there are committees that they are reporting back to council.
Within those minutes that were there was an extraordinary meeting that was held on the 13th of March, which Jenny and I attended.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Peterson. Yeah. I was invited to that one and unfortunately was unable to attend that, but I appreciate it that Councillor well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a move and second for those minutes? Councillor Burge move, Councillor Peterson second. 11.1 Mayor's, Councillors and General Manager meetings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a report to councillors on the meetings attended to by our mayors, councillors, and the general manager during February. And, yeah, just for noting a recommendation to council just to note the meetings and the meetings noted.
Question, Councillor?
No, sorry, I didn't have a question. I was just going to make the recommendation.
You don't have any questions, Bertha? No?
Madam Mayor, if I may just, it's not really a question. On the 16th of February with the MDA Region 2, just noting that myself and the General Manager also attended that.
16th of February?
Yep.
Thanks, Councillor Ford. We'll make that. Moved by Councillor Connell, seconded. Councillor Connell, all those in favour? Oh, right. Yeah. Not speaking.
But just bear with us for a minute, please, councillors. We're just going to try and get you will need to actually. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Councillor. We're just setting it up because we do have the Councillor and the General Manager streaming in. We just want to make sure that it's set up so they can ask questions and raise their hands. At the moment, we've got the minutes up on the screen, so we're just change that. So they're back up on the screen. So thanks, Councillor Ford and General Manager. So if you wish to ask a question, if you just use, there should be the yellow hand on the thing. If you do that, we'll keep an eye out for that. Just setting up the minutes, so we will run the minutes on this side. If councillors have any questions, queries about the minutes and that, just please ask, and we'll make sure that unfortunately, with only one screen, we can't have both things coming up at the same time. We're right to go again. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. 11.2 resolutions of the council.
Thank you, General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you, this is a standard monthly report regarding the update on the resolutions of the council that have been carried and also closed for each of the financial years. The attachment is a progress report on each of those resolutions.
Mr. General Manager, do we have any questions about that report? Councillor Fox?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Look, I have a couple of questions. I have a question on item 2022-0222 11.6, which is in regards to the payment of superannuation to councillors. And my question is, has there been any adjustment to the draft budget to accommodate that motion? My second question is around 11.12 in regards to the ARIC committee, that I note that the recruitment kit is not to be available until the end of April. I really feel that that's too far away. From the minutes that I've gone through, the ARIC committee met very briefly in December just to approve the audit report and hasn't met as a group since September last year. And I think with the draft budget on our table to be ready to be completed by May, that the ARIC committee needs to come together much sooner to have a look at that draft budget, discuss that draft budget and other financial issues that are occurring in council. My other item is 2020, which goes back quite some time, when it was item 11.2 at that time, and I'm wondering now if that has been completed. It was due for completion in 2020, February of this year.
Which one was that, Councillor?
That was item 2020-236. It's in relation to Conroy Street.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can answer the first one. In terms of the superannuation, which is 2022 11.6. There has been provision made in the draft budget of the 22-23. That's subject to adoption by the council. In terms of payment for this financial year, it hasn't been considered, but there will be a minor adjustment in the future quarterly budget review statement. I'm just trying to get to the second one, which was, sorry, remind me, please, Councillor Fogarty, which one was it?
Yeah, the ARIC, Chair.
Oh, the ARIC.
In regards to the ARIC committee and
yes,
particular to the recruitment kit that's not due for completion until the 30th of April. And I feel that that's too far away.
I know that public notices have gone out and recruitment has commenced. It just allows us to be able to conduct those interviews, give time for candidates to put their applications forward. It would need to be a resolution of the council, which will happen at the April council meeting. Of course, council can, if it chooses to, if we can get it done earlier, hold an extraordinary meeting, but it wouldn't be our suggestion to do that extraordinarily. So that's the timeframes that have been put forward to recruit the ARIC. In terms of ARIC committee did have a look at the final financial statements at the end of last year, but you're right, until the ARIC is established, they won't get to meet.
And sorry,
Yeah.
one more.
Third one, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Dalzell.
Yeah, the Conroy Street is an ongoing issue for council. The latest action item that's been getting pricing and that for the survey work, which when that pricing came in was much beyond what the estimates and that for that work is. So the last time I was looking at it, we were going back to other surveyors to try and reduce the costs. Ultimately, the property owner needs to pay for all costs related to it, and they've moved forward with the shed work, which what they wanted to do for us. So it's up to council to complete what are the resolutions. So yeah, that's my understanding where that's up to. I'll take that on board. I know you have raised it previously, Councillor Hogarty. I'll definitely take that on board as a matter of urgency to make sure we move that forward. But that's where it was up to, just making sure that yes, we go ahead for it, but we do keep the costs down as much as we can. The property owner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor, do you have a question?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, and I'll probably just get myself into trouble with this, but I'll try and do it to the best of my ability. Later in this meeting, the issue of the seniors living precinct will obviously come up, and I think the issue surrounding Eric and that is probably linked, because I will probably later in this meeting move motions I feel that can support anything to do with the financial side of the seniors living project, because it should go to Eric with the recommendations, and if we don't have an Eric, we can't undertake it.
Question? Councillor Burnett?
Madam Mayor, it was just a point to note that my understanding of the superannuation only refers to next financial year. It was not allowed in this financial year. So I think that's a bit of a typo in there that we're referring to the current. So that was my interpretation of it, that we voted on the next.
Yeah, thank you.
No other questions? Somebody? Somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Clapham, second. Councillor Fogarty. Yeah. Did you wish to speak? Any further recommendation? No. Councillor Fogarty, wish to
No. Questions are fine, thanks,
anyone wish to speak against the motion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay. 11.3 Investments and Reserves Report.
Thank you, General Manager.
Madam Mayor, through you, just to note that there's been some technical challenges with the original report, that there was some formatting issues where some of the pictures haven't come through. So I have sent out another updated one. This is a standard monthly report to outline the progress of investments and the reserves year to date. There is 48 million in inclusive cash at the bank for day-to-day operations. Actual interest earned in the month of February was 20,000, with accrued interest being $143,000. And the certificate of the responsible accounting officer and the investment report from Imperial Markets is attached to the report.
Did you get the email? Murray Chan. Oh no, sorry. Phil, 8:34 AM. There's a is that what you're talking about, Mr. General Manager?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, Murray Chan. Yeah, Murray Chan has sent out an email with the attached investment report attached.
Okay, 8:34
this morning. It's come in before the.
No, I still don't have it.
You want to have it?
I don't have it.
Right,
not on mine.
We might just leave that one and come back and see if we can get that, because they need to be able to.
Yes, yeah, no.
Be able to see that.
Absolutely with the information, because there's the councillors from the report, there's the recommendation with the outcomes, and that's a very similar recommendation, as was noted, part of this monthly report. There's also the attachment with the Imperial Markets report, giving that background information, but without the, I fully appreciate without figures and that extra graphs and information in there. If you wanted to defer that.
I'd like to defer that one
report
until we can. 11.4 Establishment of Health Services Advocacy Committee. Mr. General Manager, are you talking on this one?
Bear with me, Madam Mayor. I've still got some technical issues here. Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, there has been a request by Councillor Birch to raise the possibility of council establishing a committee to focus on local health services and to present a united front in advocacy for appropriate infrastructure services and funding. This is a report that responds to that request, and the recommendation is to agree in principle with the establishment of that committee and to seek nominations of interested councillors to be delegated to, in consultation with the Mayor and General Manager, to seek community representation and develop the committee's terms of reference.
Thank you. Manager, any questions?
Look, I have a question, Madam Mayor, and it's to Councillor Birch, and thanks for the initiative, Councillor Birch, in this. But my question is, how will this committee relate to the Health Advisory Group? But the Health Advisory Group was essentially established as a committee of council. So how will this be different to that group, or how will it liaise with that group or combine with that and the other groups? And I'm just interested as to what you feel your intention concerning this. I know you've been involved in that group.
I believe I was only made aware of the Health Advisory Group in these papers. It was not mentioned in our original committee paperwork that we were shown. So I've had a look at the meeting report, and it would differ greatly because a lot of the people on that Health Advisory Group are employees of Murrumbidgee Health. And so therefore, when we need their advice, by creating a council committee, I believe we can get representatives from all of those different groups. There's mental health, there's a health action group, there's, I think else that needs to be.
Well, it was the health action group that I was.
Yes, that's what I think. Yes. And from other concerned community people. Therefore, begin to make a blueprint with everybody's opinion that can then be presented onto the government regarding what we do want, and it gives a much clearer view of bringing forward someone from all of those different committees, along with some professionals and some people that have advocated in health. With the punch of council behind it, I believe it can make much further headway, and I think that was reiterated yesterday by Minister Pitt when he said that you need to be uniform in what you want, you need to present that forward. If we are dealing with, and no disrespect meant to Murrumbidgee, they have their view of what we need, and that's being dictated to from Wagga, not from our own local region. So I feel it would be extremely beneficial, and I would also hope that most councillors were able to take a bit of an interest in it, or at least some feedback towards it. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks. Councillors, we just had a bit of a dropout with the general manager, and the general manager wished to provide further discussion on this call. So, Mr. General Manager.
In terms of the Health Advisory Committee. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, in terms of the Health Advisory Committee, is that what the question is?
So yeah, thanks, Mr. General Manager. So the question was raised. It's been Councillor Burgess provided some information around that, which is great. So that's sort of where it's up to at the moment. So
Yeah.
we provide any further information, advice regarding the committee.
No, it's within the remit of the council officers to try and facilitate the desires of council, so that or councillors, so that a resolution can be formed or a decision reached. So that's the response of the council officers in response to Councillor Burgess' request. So the information is there in front of the councillors around whether or not you think it's a good idea and should be pursued. Does that answer the question that you put for me? I've just had some difficulty hearing.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much. Thanks to the good work that you and the General Manager have done in the last month or so by bringing so many people to the table. One of the things that's very obvious to everybody is that there are disparate groups throughout the community that have the best interests of the community at heart, and channeling them into a single advocacy process is extremely difficult. But just at the meeting today, we've seen complications associated with Memorial Park, which is a very good example of it. All of the meetings that we've had members of cabinet stakeholders in a very, very short time have all asked us as council to be an advocate for our community and provide a singular direction with regard to the support that government can deliver to this community. And by far one of the most pressing issues is health. And I feel it is absolutely incumbent on this council to put in place a committee that becomes the single focus point for the community and a conduit to government that enables us to get the outcomes that we need. And the terms of reference for this particular committee need to be very specific in the sense that they deal with that particular issue, in the knowledge that we will not satisfy every health advocacy group. And our goal is to provide the best outcome for the community with regards to the health services that are provided within the area of the council. And I compliment Councillor Burgess and compliment all of the councillors for trying to get behind this. It is a serious issue.
Thank you. Any other questions? Would somebody?
I'm not too sure if this is a question or
At the moment, but let it go.
I think this is a very important issue, and I thank people for bringing it up. But I believe council should have a briefing / workshop on this to work out exactly where we want to put this committee and what we want the committee to achieve. And I think the committee could achieve a lot, but I just don't want to rush into it and say, let's do a committee, let's have a workshop on it.
Thank
That
you.
was my question.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I think it is agreed in principle, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Connell. Yeah, that's right. So from the discussions there today, the recommendations are agreed in principle and seek nominations and developing communities term of reference, and that will come back in through a briefing session. It really was highlighting the discussions and requests that have come through, and for staff to be getting that direction, that in principle direction from council to continue with.
Thank you. Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Like to move the recommendation? Councillor Fogarty, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'd just like to correct one thing. I said I didn't know about the Health Advisory Group. I was referring to the minutes of the operational group, was it, that met regarding the hospital rebuild that was in our treatment. And so I was incorrect in what I said there. Yes, I think that I would like to see a few councillors on this particular group and open to any of them, and to proceed with going ahead with sorting out some terms of reference as quickly as we can, in that we are in a federal election year, and as we all know, there's two separate areas of funding. The federal is for doctors and training, and state is for your infrastructure and your normal running of your hospitals. Federal may have some money available, and it would be a shame if we missed the boat. And so I would recommend that it went ahead rather rapidly, to perhaps meet that deadline.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, look, I fully support Councillor Burge's suggestion that this cannot sit on the shelf. This needs to be actioned as swiftly as possible, so that the terms of reference can be very clear, and that people who are going to nominate to that committee also have a copy of those terms of reference, so they're very clear about what they are nominating to.
Anybody wish to speak against the motion? No, and we'll be seeking nominations.
This, thanks, councillor. So this will come up into the April briefings. Council will receive a report, and that's where council can determine what the terms of reference are, representation, community input. So.
Just ask another question. It's just in response to that comment, Mark, that again, can we have a draft terms of reference then at that workshop? Because if we've got a draft terms of reference, that will expedite the process rather than trying to start from scratch.
Absolutely, we will provide that.
Right, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. 11.5, tabling of pecuniary interest returns. Councillors and designated persons. General Manager, is that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's a just a noting of councillors and the council that councillors and designated persons, all returns have been received and that they're formally tabled to this meeting.
Thank you. Any questions? Somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Connell, second. Councillor Fallows. Councillor Connell, speak.
There you
Councillor Fallows. All those in favour? Yes. Carried. 11.6, section 355, committees, appointments and instruments of delegation.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This is a follow-up to some work that council's been doing around section 355 committees and committees in general. This report seeks to appoint the recommended committee members as are located in the the recommendation for the Bloody Hall and Rec Reserve Committee, Carnago Memorial and Hall and Recreation Ground Committee, Mayrung Hall, Pretty Pine Hall and Wanganala Hall committees, and to issue the standard instrument of delegation in the specific name of each committee as their terms of reference. It should be noted that the Berubin Hall Committee cannot be determined at this time as there's been insufficient numbers. And a report will be tabled with the council following some further work on this to attract a larger series of candidates.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Questions? Councillor Birch.
Madam Mayor, can you please enlighten me on these section 355 committees, why Memorial Park couldn't be on that or the airport? Is there a reason that they're missing, or I thought the airport used to be 355? Please enlighten me.
That's fine. Through you, Madam Mayor, thanks, Councillor Bird. So as part of the overall committee restructure, we've looked at that and where different committees sit in terms of their interaction with council and their authority sort of to act on council's behalf. And that's one of the big things between a 355 committee and an advisory group, in that 355 committees will have funds. So we spend funds in the Memorial Park group as well as the airport group, whilst they fulfil the functions of working with council and in regard to the respective facilities. It's really that point around the funds and how they run. So no, the airport, we've had discussions with the airport users regarding that, not a 355 committee. We'll review regarding Memorial Park and get back to that group to clarify what they see.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we have sorry?
Fantastic. With Berubin, so Berubin has not been able to be formed because we have Berubin hasn't been able to be formed because we haven't got enough committee members. Is it possible we can, any potential Berubin members that were interested, can they be amalgamated into Wanganala for the time being, as that's a midway point between the town and that village?
So
So they're at least still involved, we can move individuals together?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Peterson. So that is an option, but I'll just put forward to councillors that whilst the Berubin Hall won't be a 355 committee regarding the governance around it, as staff, we'd still want to interact with those groups. So until they had the numbers or were able to form a full 355 committee, we would interact with them as an advisory group. We definitely want to do that. Really, being a 355 is sort of internal governance that we need to implement to ensure that they're managed right. It doesn't, or it's independent of the fact that the council wishes to engage and interact with these groups. So yeah, we'll continue to talk with the group.
No further questions? Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Moore. Thank you. We have a seconder. Councillor Fellow. Would you like to speak? Anybody wish to speak against the motion? All those in favour? Against? Carried. 11.7, tax delegation to previous budgeted levels. Mr. General Manager, can you hear it?
Madam Mayor, just trying to catch up in my agenda here. So councillors will know that that the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal has indicated that it will only allow a rate rise of 0.7% based on a restructure and redetermination for this year. there have been some guidelines sent out, particularly correspondence sent out from the Minister for Local Government, highlighting that she considers it inadequate, and that there is an opportunity to explore other rate variations in terms of making up the shortfall from 0.7 to 2.5%. So that's all contained in the report there. And the recommendation is that council note that minister's correspondence highlighting the inadequacies of the IPART determination, and that council applies for the balance 1.8% of the expected 2.5% as earlier outlined in the Office of Local Government Circular, and explore other special rate variations released in the guidelines. So it basically is recommending that council signals its intent to not just accept the 0.7% rate increase, but to look for ways to increase the rates by 2.5%, which is a standard increase, not seen as unreasonable in my professional view, given that the current CPI is sitting at around 3.5%. So yeah, the recommendation is there for councillors to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Jam. Questions, councillors? Do we have any questions? Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Clapham, seconded by Councillor Connell. Councillor Clapham, do you wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Connell?
No, thank you very much, Chair.
Anybody wish to speak against the motion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Sorry, 11.8, what's on sign in Charlotte Street? Thanks.
So this report is to DA 922, what's on signage in Charlotte Street. The application was lodged with council on 2nd of February, and it relates to the erection of a sign in Charlotte Street, which is in the roadside stop, formerly mainly known as the Ute on the Pole site. The advertising and signage step requires that council refer this to Transport for New South Wales because it's within 250 metres of State Highway. This was referred to the Transport for New South Wales, and no objections were received, no objections were received from them. The site is a Crown allotment, and Crown's Lands Department approved the use of the site for this. The recommendation is that council approve the development application for the what's on signage at lot 709 Charlotte Street, as the application generally complies with the planning controls and has demonstrated to have a satisfactory effect on the environment. The proposal is consistent with the zone and desired future character of the area. The reason why the application is being reported to council is that council is the applicant and thereby required.
Okay. Questions? Questions? The recommendation is there. Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Fogarty, seconded by Councillor Moore. Councillor Fogarty, would you like to speak to the motion?
Madam Mayor, look, I think this is a great opportunity to promote events that are occurring in Jenny. It's very obvious in driving past there. It's a very popular spot for people to pull up and to have a look. And I think it's a great initiative by the staff to move that forward.
Councillor Moore, did you wish to speak? Anybody wish to speak against it? All those in favour? Aye.
I,
11.9, construction of a steel fabrication shed.
So DA 1522 is construction for a steel fabrication shed, the storage shed and demountable office. This is to be constructed at, the application was received on the 11th of February 2022. The development is at lot 33 and 34 Sayas Road. The proposed development is for the construction of a steel fabrication shed, a demountable office, and a storage shed for plant and equipment. The DA was exhibited for a period of 14 days and no submissions were received. And the DA has been reported to council as council is the current owner of the land. The application was considered satisfactory. There were no objections to the proposal, and the recommendation is that council approve the development application on lots 34 and 35 Sayas Road. And the application, because the application is generally compliant with the planning provisions contained in the NEB and the development control plan, and the development will have no significant adverse impact on the environment. The application is reported to council as council is currently the owner of the land. I believe there are negotiations, or council has offered into a contract for the purchase of the land. At this time, it's still under council ownership.
Questions? Questions? Somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Cotton? The seconder, Councillor Byrne? Yes, so we do need a division, so we'll go around the room, including on the screen. Councillor Fellows? Four?
Yes.
Councillor Clayton, four. Councillor Connell? Councillor Fawns?
4.
Councillor
You want to say too?
All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Okay, 11.10, debt feeding facility.
So DA 8221 is for the dog breeding facility that is proposed to be located or developed on the corner of Birrumbidgil Road and Flanagan's Road, Warragoon. The land is zoned RU1 primary production, and the site has currently been utilised for a dog breeding enterprise of approximately 60 dogs. This development did not have council approval, so when council became aware of that, the applicant was advised that they needed to obtain development consent. The applicant subsequently lodged an application for a dog breeding facility to cover the existing and create a breeding facility with a total of 120 dogs. So the application was exhibited for a period of 14 days and 21 objections were received. The application was also referred to the RSPCA. However, we were unable to receive a response from the RSPCA. Council officers visited the site, which was attended by our council ranger and our planning officer, and they were shown around the site by the owner, and they showed no concerns from the existing operation. However, this approval seeks to approve the existing as well as the additional breeding dogs. The conditions generally raised objections on moral grounds, but also, of course, on amenity concerns. The amenity concerns are grounds for planning consideration, and they have all been considered, and a number of changes were made to the original application to ensure that the amenity of the area was protected. So the recommendation is that council approve development application 8221 for the dog breeding facility at 383 Bergen Vigil Road, Warragoon. And the reasons for this is the proposed development is permissible in the zone under the Conago LEP, and it complies with the provisions of this environmental planning instrument. And the proposed development, subject to the imposition of conditions, is not likely to have any unreasonable impact on the environment. And where adverse impacts have been identified, the appropriate conditions to have been imposed to mitigate the effects. I probably should have raised this earlier, but there was a condition added to the conditions that are in the attachment, which just required that the applicant, should it be approved, they would need to give us a schedule of works, so we have some control about how quickly these things have been happening, how quickly the existing facility will be upgraded and the breeding dogs moved out of that facility and into the specialised areas. So that condition will be there, but unfortunately the gremlins got in and it didn't come up in the list of conditions because it was added later. So but yeah, the recommendation is that the facility be approved.
Questions, councillor Conroy? Do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question, Madam Mayor. I would like to move the motion.
Just councillor Fellows had a question.
No.
This is all very new to town, I'm sure, new to the councillors. So we're actually waiting on a development application. And so this is more, say, on a planning basis, but not so much on a moral basis. So I think we need to be all aware that there's two separate issues. And I have no moral objections to the dog facility. But if we're voting on this, it'll be based on a planning basis, not so much on a personal or a moral issue. Is that correct?
Yeah, our consideration is an approval for a land use. So if it can meet all the relative objectives of the land use, and it complies with any other land planning requirements, then that are the considerations. That's what we're considering here, not the moral or any other outside the scope of the planning regulations.
Councillor
That's really Madam Mayor. Because it is a rather contentious issue, and I understand that we are voting on the actual statistics and that it's passed the pub test, it's done all the right things. Will council be following up as it develops, and will it be checked on like most other places are, that with safety and things like that? Is there a follow-up of councils, or excuse me, do we have excuse me, a ranger or something in place that does check these facilities as they may be away in the future? Is there some safeguard there that we follow up and do what goes on, the same as you would for health standards in a cafe or whatever? Do we have, is there something like that, Murray? That's all I'm asking.
Get through you, Madam. Yes, the conditions of consent will lay out a lot of things. We won't be there to assess the animal welfare because that's not the council role.
No.
We will, however, we will be checking conditions of consent, and we will be, visiting the site if there's something raised, any issues raised, and naturally, if there is a concern for our ranger and our officers, that will be reported to the RSPCA, who's the appropriate authority. So that would be our role.
Any other questions? Mr. General Manager, did you have a question?
No, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that this be moved to the April meeting. We only got the business paper on Saturday morning. There are questions on planning issues that I'd like to discuss with the planning officers. Yeah, I just believe I need to be satisfied that all the planning issues have been, and I'm sure they have, but, and now that the Manager Development Services has said that the conditions didn't come through correctly on the business paper, I believe that is a very good reason to just get everything correctly done and put it up to the April meeting.
All right, so yes,
Madam Mayor, if I can,
Madam Mayor,
sorry, yeah.
there's a point of order, Madam Mayor. There's a motion on the table that hasn't been seconded, and I would like to second that motion before any further discussion transpires.
just for clarity, Madam Mayor, that's that Councillor Connell is moving this motion, that this item be deferred until the April meeting, which is a procedural motion. And that's quite within the realms of the council to be able to do that.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything else, or was that that was all you wanted to say?
Yes, Madam Mayor, there's the implications of this are potentially that you know, someone can appeal this as a deemed refusal. But the likelihood of that happening is I suppose, speculatively reasonably low. So yeah, this is a deferral motion from what I could tell from the debate that's happened so far. The discussion that's happened so far is just to defer the matter to the April meeting, and therefore we would, as a organisation, bring the matter back to a briefing session to be able to be discussed by the councillors in further detail prior to going to the April council meeting.
Thank you. So, just for clarity, for councillors, the motion that is on the table and has been seconded is that council defer the matter of DA 82/21 dog breeding facility to the April council meeting. So, Councillor Connell, you're happy? Thank you.
Councillor Foley?
Yes.
All those in favour?
So, yes, no, you're right. Sorry, yeah, heads in the division. It's not actually because it's that procedural motion, as the general manager noted, and not a motion to approve. It's not one that needs a decision. It's not actually a planning decision. It's a procedural council procedure.
Yes, so we're all approving it being deferred to April, correct?
Madam Mayor, there is scope for debate about whether or not it does get deferred. So I would encourage you to call for, see if there's any dissension about that motion, and then put the vote. That's my suggestion.
So, just as with London, when alternate motions are put up, so the four. Yep. You're good.
Councillor Fogarty wanted to speak. No? Yes?
So, sorry, Councillor, we're just trying to bring it back onto the procedural as the motion seconded, and then the mover gets to talk for it, the seconder gets to talk for it, and then anyone talk again. So we just want to make sure we get back on the process as being right. So yeah, sorry, we're just back on that. Thank you, councillors.
My reason to want to defer this is not on any other reason rather than make sure we've got the planning conditions correct for what the council wants. I think we're almost there, but I would still like to have discussion with the planning officer or in a briefing and just make sure we've got everything correct or how council want it. And yeah, and I think 30 days added on to the time is not going to break it. Okay.
Thank you, Damien. Yes, look, I congratulate the staff for the amount of work that they've done on this. And Larry and your team, congratulations on the work and what you've presented to us. But I certainly support Councillor Connell's suggestion of deferring the motion, given that we did not get the business papers until Saturday. So we are only allowed 1 day for people to be able to contact staff if they had any further questions. And I know I've got quite a number of questions that I would like to ask in terms of the development. So I think it's a very necessary motion that Councillor Connell has moved to defer any decision on this application until the April meeting, given that all councillors will have time to digest the motion and to have conversations that are necessary around it.
Does anybody wish to speak against the motion currently on the table? Councillor Clapham.
Whilst we did only get these papers a couple of days ago, I have gone through them to the best of my ability. And I can quite openly say there are many issues relative to planning matters that I am absolutely unqualified to cast judgment upon, given the complexities associated with this. And I would have confidence in the council staff putting a motion of this complexity to us and recommending that they have done all the right things associated with providing councillors with the opportunity to vote upon a motion of this nature. Having another 30 days to look at this isn't going to make it any easier for me than it is today. And there are issues in there that I don't understand, I don't purport to understand. After reading Councillor Fernie and Councillor Connell, I should understand that I would need 6 months to actually get my head around the code. And I put my faith in the council staff to make the appropriate recommendations to the councillors.
Councillor Burge, is there something you wish to speak against the motion?
Yes, Natalie, I just believe that we have read it. It was a short time frame with the business papers. However, it meets all the requirements, and then to delay another month, I think is only prolonging the agony for everybody. It is a difficult consideration, but we have to be blatant that we are following procedure, and I trust in our staff that we are following procedure. So that's all I'd like to comment on.
Thank you.
Well, my sentiments are the same as Harold and Jim. I'm open to know more about planning, Murray Sutton does, and I'm quite happy to back the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson, Councillor Hampton, Councillor.
Yeah. I don't want to make this a big deal, but thank you. It's an excellent report, Larry. Technical issues that stopped us getting forward with the conditions. Now, that was one of the main questions I had for the planning staff, and you may have got condition in there that we can proceed. I just don't want to rush this just to for the sake of getting information off the board, so I think we should take this work seriously and make sure we've got it right.
I put the current motion, so those in favour of the current motion? Those against? I'm against. Motion has been carried 5-4.
Madam Mayor, just to be clear, if I can, there's 5 against and 4 for, is that correct?
5 for, 4 against.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. 11.11 Development Services Report.
So 11.11, report 11.11 details the development activity for February 2022. So the details are provided of the applications received.
I don't have that. I don't have 11.1. No, sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're right.
I found it. It's
It's very important that councils can follow the paper and know where we're up to. We're more than happy to just make sure we're all.
7.6.
Table of contents is a bit all over the shop.
So large, that's
Yeah.
Yes, we've all found it.
Thank you.
Page 376.
So it details the applications received during the month. It details applications approved. It also gives information about processing times and number of developments by type, and some information on our animal control activities. And number of certificates issued and our swimming pool inspection program. So the application is provided for information.
Questions?
Yeah, sorry.
Questions, anybody?
Madam Mayor, if I can just add to Mr. Sutton's summary there, noting the DA that council's just approved this meeting is the engineering firm that is going to be expanding onto industrial land, which is formerly owned, or still currently owned by council, but quite a good news story for the council and its economy. So that's DA 1522, I believe. Is that right, Mr. Sutton? So Tremble Engineering will be that'll allow them to expand onto that industrial precinct there, and it's quite a good news story for our economy.
No questions? Did somebody want to move the recommendation? No. Councillor Paul, have a seconder. Councillor Fogarty. Councillor Connell, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Councillor Fogarty, do you
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do you wish to speak against it? No. All those in favour?
No.
Carried. Major project, 11.12 major projects report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the regular monthly report to council regarding the grant funded projects, major projects that council's undertaken from a variety of funding sources. Included in the report updates on Lord Road. So the 6 kilometre of that. Now, we still have 1.6 kilometres to complete in the works due to other projects that council needs to undertake and complete. The crew that were working on will be retasked, reallocated to Barham Road. They'll look over the Barham Road work. We need to do some reconstruction at the bridge over the channel, and then come back and complete Lord Road by the end of the financial year. So there'll be a bit of a change in the delivery program regarding that. In terms of the Town Hall Civic Precinct, that's moving along well, given the challenges it's having with the contractor resources and delivery of materials. Council aware, after the briefing, we had a walkthrough the building. It's progressing well. Just working through getting the applications certificate for the estate. So that staff can move back in, which they're very keen to do, and also that the estate building will have the new chambers, and I'm sure councils are keen to move into the new chambers. Works continuing on Augusta Street around the corner. Waring Gardens, there's been some challenges around the Waring Gardens projects in getting contractors, but we have awarded those contracts, and they'll commence. Another project here is the Memorial Park Amenities, which was part of the discussion with the user group. So council has at its previous meeting awarded the tender to a local contractor, the Green Constructions. Discussions with the user group, the specific user group, and the Memorial Park users in general, has just highlighted some concerns raised with the layout and the facilities that have been fixtures that have been provided, as well as the location. That there can be a better location that will work in better down at the reserve. So council staff team will take on board those comments, and we'll work with the groups to ensure that the best outcome for the project is reached, and also with the funding bodies regarding that project. That's one of 3 projects down there. The other one is the car park and roadworks, which are getting out. Well, I've seen they're out for tender at the moment, and then also to work with the Rhinos Cricket Club and DNA regarding refurbishment of the hall, sorry, not the hall, of the club rooms down at that number 3 area of the facility. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any questions?
Any questions? Somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Bird, do we have a seconder? Councillor Peterson? Councillor Bird, is there anything you'd like to add? Speak to Councillor Peterson? No? You're sort of looking and frowning and being, does anybody wish to speak against the motion? All those in favour? Aye. Carried. All right. 11.13 operations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the regular monthly report regarding the activities of the operations teams, council's operations teams, similar to the development services report that was provided earlier, highlighting council's continuing with roadworks and maintenance works in the area, as well as works on behalf of Transport New South Wales. Generally, operational matters and maintenance around the town are progressing well. Definitely with the parks and gardens, it's a very much a higher workload, higher effort over the spring summer times, and we're just coming off that. So, given challenges at the start of the spring season, I think the staff have done well to present the town in a very well through the big activities and events that we've had over the holiday period.
Any questions? No, do we? Not a question, Madam Mayor, it's more a compliment. Following on from the director's comments, the real compliment to the staff, the number of compliments that I received walking through the town on Saturday was very gratifying. That so many people that were visitors to the town were just amazed at how good the town looked. And obviously there's been a lot of dedicated work done by the staff. So Mark, big congratulations to your team.
Thanks for that. We'll ensure that they go on to the staff. They take a lot of pride in it. Thanks again.
Yeah, the town looked magnificent on Sunday morning, and also like to thank the staff for organising excellent weather on Saturday morning.
I think it was a dash down dash, wasn't it? So do we have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Fogarty is thinking that. Councillor Connell? Councillor Fogarty, when you're ready.
No, just, yeah, my comments were certainly to the staff, their dedication and work that they do.
Thank you. Councillor Fogarty, do you need to add, would you like to add anything? Anybody wish to speak against the recommendation? No? I knew you wasn't going to ask the question. All those in favour? Carried. Right, now just bear with me once it's organised to go backwards, but we've got to.
Thank you. Yep.
So going back to 11.3, the investment and reserves report, obviously they did come up as part of the notes, and you've only just received them. So,
thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm not sure, Mr. General Manager, whether you wish to talk further to this one or.
Through Madam Mayor, I have nothing more to add except apologies that we've had those technical issues with regards to the agenda as a whole, and particularly the most impacted report was this one, the investment return reserve report, and many of the graphs that were supposed to be put into this report, it didn't end up showing up on the initial report that council has received. It's all back there now. There is nothing further for me to add except council notes the investment numbers as they are presented in the report.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I may just take a little bit different different tack than you, Mr. General Manager, but I'm here. So thanks, and again, as the General Manager has said, we do apologise for the issues with the paper, I can assure you the staff involved with it did an absolute power of work in trying to prepare and present that to council. Fully aware that with the report and with the detailed information only being presented to council now, and whilst it is a regular report and councillors can track the information through that tonight, and the recommendation as put there is where council's position is. Councillors may wish to look at if they're not comfortable with getting the information at a level, time, sorry, whether they want to defer this matter to the April meeting. With councillors do actually, we do have all the information here, but yeah, that is an option.
Question, councillor Peterson.
This also includes our expenditure for staffing the, I guess, 152 staff and practices included here. So we are able to have the union.
Thanks, Councillor Peterson. So in terms of the reserves that council has, there's a number of categories of reserves, and I think that's what you're wondering about, is that we have restricted reserves and unrestricted reserves. So all council's liabilities in terms of leave and other liabilities are considered in the restricted reserves. So.
There was also on the top of page 2. I'm assuming that's the general. The balance, 817. Right, page 3 on my policy.
Yep.
Is that your general reserve or what? Not quite sure terminology.
I'd have to ask the general manager.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, so thanks. Did you want to say the question again? Or, so it's just regarding on page 3, there's a summary cash book balance, receipts less payments. So we end up with a cash book balance as at 28th of February being approximately $3.8 million, and there's also statement summaries around that. So it's just some further questions, clarification of what that cash book, the information regarding the cash book balance as at 28th of February, and so in line with council's overall reserves and investments. So just some clarity around that point.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor. That cash is the day-to-day cash that's at bank at the time at the end of February. The remainder is sitting in investments, so it's been articulated in the other graphs there. So prior to that, there's total investments carrying amount February 2022, and it's also a proportion pie chart there to show the different institutions those investments are carried, and the remaining is 3.8 million in cash book. So it's just general cash for continuing operations. It is different to the reserves. The reserve is an accounting treatment to show the apportionment of funds that are restricted or unrestricted for certain purposes, and so that's just another way to slice the information to see what all that money is for.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, the recommendation is there.
I'll move the recommendation.
Have a mover to Councillor Connell. Do we have a seconder? Councillor follows. Councillor Connell, do you wish to speak?
Really been a bad we'll get another report in April, so I don't want to pull this on to the April meeting. I think we have enough deferrals to there.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add? Anyone wish to speak against it? All those in favour? Right. covered off all of that.
Of course, right.
Uh,
So, notices of
12,
motion.
no, nil, 12 notices of motions. We have nil notices of motions. It sounded like I had 12.
Yeah, no, I'm not aware of any notice of motion.
Sorry, when do we put forward a notice of motion? Or if we have a motion that we wish to put forward?
Mr. General Manager, just a question, procedural, around notices of motion and when they would need to be submitted to be included in the business paper.
Yes, the notice of motion need to be submitted 9 business days prior to the agenda being produced, prior to the council meeting, to allow time to incorporate any recommendations from that notice of motion and to get it into the agenda.
Up to 3 days, we'll try and get the agenda out at least three days before it. So with the Tuesday meeting, we're aiming for Wednesday, Thursday. We do appreciate it's coming out on the Friday, but in terms of moving forward, that's the Thursday.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson. Not aware of any questions with notice. Questions without notice?
Now I've had a few members of, a few constituents in the community have been asking about expenditures within council projects. I'm just wondering if there is an option for us to have a list of project managers and their contact details provided. So say we're on a committee that has projects coming up, and that committee feels that they're not being contacted by council, they're not being involved in consultation. Do we have that project manager that they can contact, so there isn't those questions that come back to us saying, well, we're not doing what we need to do? The actual committee itself, they're involved in something, they can contact the project manager and what's happening.
No, thank you for that. Thanks, Councillor Peterson. And we definitely take that on board. Yes, we do, as part of our project plan, have allocated project managers, and the project managers are given the authority to engage with all stakeholders for projects, including those. So I am aware of those concerns. Those concerns have also been made to me, which I'm happy to take on board. As discussed, sort of project management, be looking at discussions, briefing around that, but we'll provide that information. So thank you.
And so we have an appraisal for general manager coming up. When, as councillors, are we going to meet to organise and discuss that?
So, are you happy for me to speak to this, Mr. General Manager?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I only caught a little bit of that that question. Could Councillor Peterson repeat it, please?
No, go.
No, the question I had, sorry, General Manager, is just that we have your appraisal is coming up, and just that when councillors themselves, when we will meet just with councillors to discuss the appraisal and when that's likely to occur.
Okay. Yes, I'm happy for you to answer it, Madam Mayor, but yeah, we've booked in a briefing with the councillors on the 22nd. So as soon as we've confirmed that, we can inform all the councillors. We're just trying to arrange, make sure that flights are booked, etc.
Exactly as the General Manager said. So we're currently waiting for confirmation of the facilitator to confirm dates. We are currently looking potentially at the 22nd of this month to get that done. And just to remind, it's not a performance review as such. It's pretty much setting, yes, what our expectations and what we're going to want the General Manager to do. So we're waiting on the facilitator, and we'll get together and we'll meet, and he will help guide us through where we need.
Facilitator of council.
Correct. Yeah. Did you say the 22nd? That's what we're aiming. Councillor Peterson, did you have other questions?
Yeah, hang on. So we've had, so the gates that were vandalised in the Waring Gardens and the playground,
We've had a follow-up from the police regarding what's happened there.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. So yeah, whenever we have any vandalism, that we log it with the police with identification incident number. We don't sort of as a rule chase up with the police to see what they've done about it. Doesn't matter once they're notified. In terms of just general, we have a general level of unfortunately of vandalism throughout the community. Generally, it's really good, but we do have some other. So our way of sort of managing it is we go and repair it as soon as we can, and to make sure that it's safe and all facilities are open. We do notify the police, but yeah, we don't make it a point to say, oh, police may, and they do on occasions. Council does have a fantastic relationship with the police, so they'll come to us, but that's up to them. It's not up to us to take that action.
Peter and I did manager on a committee with the police, and this came up in our last committee meeting, and it was really quite interesting. They would have a report every day to the head office, and then they'll get all that intelligence, and then basically put into a computer, and all these times and what they've done, how they've done it, all gets fed into a computer, and they can actually get a profile of what's actually going on. So they work very
No, it's we had a few bouts and got a lot of follow up.
And they certainly are. I think there was comments made around security cameras and, faces not able to be seen. Do you have any other question? Councillor Fondia, please.
Mayor, I do have a few questions. Look, my first question, and it's been raised a couple of times today, is in regards to the timing of the business papers. Given that the council meetings have been shifted 2 days forward, I believe the business papers, the receipt or the send out of the business papers also needs to be shifted 2 days forward to allow the councillors time to contact staff. Currently, I don't think it's fair on the staff when we receive the papers on a Friday afternoon that there's only allows 1 day. So if with 9 people trying to contact staff on that 1 day, that's unreasonable for staff. So I believe business papers need to be coming out at least by the Monday or the Tuesday of the week prior to the meeting. Or at the very latest the Wednesday morning prior to the meeting the following week on the Tuesday, so that it allows adequate time for all councillors to be able to ask the necessary questions that they have in regards to all of the reports. My other question is in regards to the staff survey. Every year it's been common practice to have a staff survey it's generally held around about September of the year, and councillors receive a full report and briefing of that staff survey. And I've not seen the staff survey that would have been conducted last September come through, and I believe it's in everybody's best interest to be able to see that staff survey. As councillors, it's our responsibility around the work health and safety of all of the staff, and the staff survey is certainly a key indicator of the well-being of the staff that we're employing. So I'd like to see that action. My other question is also in regards to reports that previously and it came actually from a very good suggestion from yourself to the last council, that the meetings, the regular weekly meetings of the mayor, the deputy mayor and the general manager, a brief report of those was written up and it was filed in the Teams folder. Through my inspection of that folder, there's not been a report filed since last November of the previous council. And I think it would be in everybody's interest. It was a very good point to keep all of the councillors involved in where the discussions were happening, what was happening, and it gave a great opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah, thank you. Just thanks, Councillor Hogan. Just in response to those questions, absolutely regarding the timing of the business paper and the change. Thursday has been a very long standing. It works really well with the Friday cut off and do so. Well, we've had a few meetings now on Tuesdays and having some teething issues with technology. We've definitely talked about it at executive meetings. So we had an executive meeting this week, and the topic of the business paper was front and centre. So getting that earlier out, setting those deadlines is definitely something we will implement internally, because we do need to get that out to councillors, and are very mindful that that's not happening as smoothly as we'd like to. So definitely interested. What that day is, though, we'll just further discussions, and I'll let the general manager and that have those discussions. But there's definitely that need to come back early, as you're saying, so that Tuesday, Wednesday before it. In terms of staff survey, yes, we have undertaken that survey. So definitely was undertaken. It was finished around about the October-November period last year. It's a little bit behind. We found it very hard engaging with staff, given the situation and people working everywhere and working from home and that. So at the moment, with the staff survey, that's in the hands of managers to come up with ways of implementing some of those issues raised, and I fully understand and expect that will come back through briefings, as it has done in previous years, in terms of making the councillors aware of the outcomes of the staff survey. So definitely undertaken, definitely will come back to council as has happened previously. In terms of the talk about from your meetings that you
well, we actually we haven't had one for a few weeks, being that Van Hill, you've been Sydney, and we could definitely
Through your memory, would you like to for a minute just to talk about the last meeting? If council's interested.
I think there's a suggestion around writing it.
The last meeting, take was with Tabby Brunker, and he's had some issues with his development application, so we thought it was a great opportunity to sit down with us. Basically, he asked him to bring some information with him, so he brought up a timeline of which is straight off the court, and it was a great opportunity for him to put forward his case and make a few suggestions. And it was great to have Phil there, because he was made aware of some of the issues where it would appear that some of the paperwork may be just sitting on a desk for a couple of weeks before it gets action on it. And conversely, we've seen that the paper's been on a desk for 3 days and it's been actioned on. So it was a good session, and it was a good way of taking to put forward his case, and it was great for Phil as well.
Well, yeah, it was. So yeah, the issue wasn't necessarily with the voting portal, more around the timing
and perhaps moving forward, if we're going to be looking to be growing even further, that perhaps we need to resource the VA department in such a manner that we can get things through quickly.
Councillor Birch, you had a question?
Just a question regarding the business papers. The size of it was 400 odd pages, and I do understand that that can happen. I wonder if we did, is it possible to receive it, say by the Wednesday night? That gives us 5 days prior to the Tuesday meeting. And if there is extras, because we've got to be mindful of our staff and what pressure they're under, especially leading into a weekend, any extras are just sent us an addendum which we can then look at. It'll be much easier for us to get, say, a 200-page document, start reading that, hopefully have it done by the Friday. I just wonder whether that's worth looking at, just the size of that document is probably why it was downloaded so badly. Yeah, so just for the sake of it, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor. So, yeah, we'll take that on notice, and it's always been a struggle for all councils, previous council, and for council staff, the size of the papers and how we can put them together, so they're not so large. So definitely keep working on that. I hope that we'll discuss it internally, work out some process and that, and then advise councils of what that will be moving forward.
Any other questions?
Mayor, if I could just.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Beg your pardon, sorry to interrupt. Just if I can add to the questions around the agenda. The statute says 3 business days or 3 days prior to the council meeting, which is conscious that we've had some technical difficulties this time around, and that doesn't mean we have to only meet those minimum requirements. Or certainly try and see if we can work out a process that gives councillors a bit more information, whether it's the Thursday or the Wednesday, so we can certainly have those discussions. I just do point out to councillors that if we had stuck to the Wednesday prior in this council meeting, we wouldn't have been able to bring in some of those later reports, such as the health committee, and it wouldn't have been able to be dealt with expeditiously. It would have had to be accepted as a late report, an urgent report, because the agenda has already been produced. So the challenges we have is that there is some very prescriptive requirements around when council agendas are produced, and once a council agenda is produced, then nothing further can be added to that, with the exception of things like mayoral minutes, etc. So unless the council accepts it as a late report and an urgent item. So it's just that balancing act around the timing we need to get right. I've got also suggest to the councillors that have regard to the council staff interaction policy, in that when you're discussing any reports to the council, that there's essentially 3 council officers, the 2 directors and myself, who need to be consulted regarding the council reports. So just have regard to that, because I'd hate to be talking, breaching that policy inadvertently.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm not actually sure who to direct the question to, but just out of curiosity, I was interested to find out if the correspondence between the Pastoral Times and us as councillors, or the council body, we moved our meeting from like the previous council's Thursdays back to Tuesday. One of those reasons was to be able to communicate with the community via the Pastoral Times, and I'm just curious to find out if it has been successful, and the correspondence between the 2 entities has been successful.
We've had a fair bit of feedback with them. We invited them in after our last meeting. Yeah, it was, to have a discussion, and they asked us any questions, any follow-on questions. But we can only do what we can do, and ultimately, it is up to them. And they've been invited, they've been asked to come. We can't do any more than that. They have come in, they have asked a couple of questions, as you're aware, when we had a presentation the other day with Sarah Campbell. We invited them in, and they happily came along. So certainly the relationship's good, but we can do what we can do and take it from there.
I understand that. I was just also interested to know if there was some way, because I mean, I don't believe I don't believe that it's all up to the Pastoral Times. I actually think that one of our goals is to communicate with the community, being open and honest and all that sort of stuff. Is there a way that we can be a little bit more pushy in what we have brought to the community on issues that are being the whispers around town, you know, just is there some sort of little, it's not a report as such, but is there a summary about what we're discussing and what we're happy to give them to be able to push them into delivering that information out to where we want it to go?
Yeah, I think, Councillor, well, I think we'll take that on board. It's something we're always working on. I know, and with our communications officer in the room, something that she's been working on as well. I think that the best thing for that is pulling together how we do it and then bringing that up to a briefing, just a discussion. So if councils have some more ideas, more than happy to be in there. So I think, that we'll bring that back to as a briefing, just a further discussion on that point.
Madam Mayor, if I can just add to that, this very much agree with Mr. Dalzell around this is a matter of how to develop an appropriate or review our communication strategy with the community. Just councillors are maybe not be aware that we moving the meeting to Tuesday has allowed us to have a regular follow-up meeting with the Pastoral Times on the following day. So there is actually one booked with the Pastoral Times tomorrow. And, councillors are welcome to come along to that if they wish, but, knowing that there's time. So if councillors do want to be invited to that, they're also welcome. And that's part of our part of our community and communication strategy with the rest of the community. It's not the end of it, but it's just part of it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
And I'm not sure this question applies to the council, but I've been approached by a gentleman that wants to put some canister signs up, and he's done a couple of signs around the town, and he's approached Pat, who's on there, and he's come to me. Now, I'm not quite sure on how to go about this. I think he wants to pay for it himself.
Thank you, Councillor Fellows. Thanks for that, and it's good to see those groups wanting to engage in the town. That's an operational issue, so all they need to do is just, if you get passed on the advice to him, is to contact council, and we'll deal with that with the staff who will be involved with it. Hasn't come over my desk. I'll keep an eye on it. Probably go through a different section of council, but that's the best way to address that one. It's just that'll be fine. We'll look it through into our customer service system. We'll make sure that goes through council.
Councillor Patton.
I'll try and get as far away from council business as I possibly can. I'll ask the question as a Dorothy Dixon by posing the question as to why we're able to undertake those basic of democratic rights in a free and friendly environment when half the world away, 44 million people are having their rights taken away from the children being slaughtered, women being killed. 38 Australians died in Ukraine when MH17 came down. I think, to put it on notice, we're a caring, empathetic and good society is something that we should all aspire to. And as appropriately as you mentioned the flood victims at the beginning of this meeting, I think we should all be very mindful that a lot of people in this world are having to go through a tough time. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Moving to confidential council, we need a mover and a seconder to go into confidential council. Councillor Moore will move to go into. We have Councillor Froggy.
Can you just,
Wait for the.
Linda, how do we call this? Linda.
We're going to have to stop streaming, because otherwise we will lose, Linda and Jill. So we have to stop the live stream.
We'll get it back up and running afterwards.
Every time we meet, you're going to have your,
Live streaming.
We're just still live streaming, councillors, we're just making sure we get that off, sorry.
Whatever.